7 members of a gang from London have been sentenced to a total of 116 years for conspiring a gun plot to try and shoot a rival rapper. The Harrow Road Boys HRB bought firearms in a bid to harm the drill star Digga D as part of a gang war that left 3 people dead and brought communities to their knees. The group attempted to hunt down the controversial rapper who was part of the Ladbroke Grove-based CGM gang as part of a tit-for-tat postcode war in West London in 2022 and 2023. The feud began when a member of the Harrow Road Boys, which also flooded the streets of West London with drugs, was shot for entering the rival gang's territory. 2 other killings were to follow, one of which involved the brother of a high-ranking member of HRB, after which 7 members of the gang were tasked with finding Digga D and harming him in revenge, Kingston Crown Court was told. Today they were jailed for more than 100 years after pleading guilty to firearms and drugs offences, with the judge labelling them a blight on their own community. A fellow member of the group, rapper Marvin William Bailey, better known by his stage name of Fredo, was also named as a conspirator in the trial. However, he failed to appear, with the court being told he is believed to be living abroad. Digga D, whose real name is Reese Herbert, was jailed for almost 4 years in January for supplying 45 kilos of cannabis after he was arrested during an Instagram live stream. His rap songs and videos glorifying violence and goading rivals have seen him dubbed London's most hated rapper due to a long list of enemies. The prosecutor Ian McLaughlin Casey told the court that the first killing took place in July 2020 when Billy McCullough, known as Billy the Kid, was shot dead by rival gang members in Harlesden. Just a month later, Jeffrey Wegby, a 26-year-old known as Gucci, was also shot dead in Kilburn. Mr. McLaughlin said his death was glorified in a video for a drill rap song called Roll Up, which was released by Javon Tyson, also known as Dill Dots, and is a member of the Harrow Road Boys. The lyrics of the song referred to taking a dead person's ashes and making them into a roll-up as a sign of disrespect. Less than 2 years later, in July 2022, that lad, Little Dots' brother, was killed after being shot in the heart outside a block of flats in West Kilburn. Following this, Javon led the search for Digga D and sent a list of rival gang members to target the court heard. The 24-year-old, who had an added status in the gang due to being a successful recording artist in his own right, also abused a woman to store a firearm in one of his music videos. Snapchat correspondents showed the gang members discussing holding and financing the firearms, where they said they no longer required a female to store the firearm. Eventually, their £500 a month lock, a name for an individual storing the weapons, was recovered by police. A week later, there was a fatal shooting on August 23rd, 2022. Mr. McLaughlin said the 7 defendants intended to cause significant harm as they attempted to hunt Digga D, who's part of the CGM gang. The prosecutor described it as a high culpability case demonstrated by weapons seized by police being replaced by the defendants. The members of the Harrow Road Boys gang, Javon Tyson, Kaylan Granum, Mustafa Abdullah, Romello Briggs Leon, Harry Crump, Yassin Abdullah, and Herman Yekalo, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to possess a firearm with intent to endanger life between July and November 2022. Abraham Safo Frimpong was found not guilty of the charge, but was found guilty of contravening the Prisons Act by smuggling phones behind bars. At the sentencing hearing today, a community impact statement from Police Constable David Hammond told how the gang was causing havoc on the ward and beyond. The Harrow Road Boys gang had a massive impact on the local community, with a high level of drug dealing and serious violence in the area. Children were recruited by the gang to expand the drug dealing operation outside of the capital, with offences by the Harrow Road Boys leaving the community in fear of when the next attack will be. The gang felt they were above the law, the court was told, with people afraid to leave their homes and one local even abandoning their tenancy out of fear. On August 2020, the crew showed complete disregard for bail conditions set to prevent further offending and threw a party in the middle of Harrow Road. Gang violence has been a ward priority for several years. This was without doubt the issue that concerned the residents the most. The statement from the officer already said, "The hardest thing I've had to do is deal with families who have lost their children to gang violence." He added that gang violence destroys the lives of entire families in split seconds and that the network needs to be broken before another person is killed. Police found 2 guns in a bag in a service cupboard next to a flat on the Mozart estate on October the 24th, 2022, and they were forensically linked to Tyson and Granum. The prosecutor said the police also searched a flat in a tower block in Vauxhall in 2022 and found a loaded gun hidden behind a panel in a roof void. The prosecutor said the lead offence, conspiracy to possess a firearm with intent to endanger life, is aggravated by the fact that the weapons were replaced when police found them. The gang used locks to keep the gun safe. There was a discharge of 1 firearm, and the firearm recovered was used to shoot at a group of CGM gang members in 2022, and he said they also hoped to gun down Digga D with the weapon. It was also heard that the gang smuggled in mobile phones into prisons across London by using drones. The illicit handsets were used behind bars by prisoners to order tobacco, which was also flown in by a drone, and Crump was also found guilty of possession with intent to supply coke after 16 grams of the drug were found on a table, as well as messages indicative of selling coke found on his phone. Mustafa Abdullah pleaded guilty to possession with intent to supply a controlled drug, which was around 500 grams of cannabis, which was seized from him home in the borough of Kensington and Chelsea in 2023. And then you got Yassin Abdullah was also found guilty of possessing with intent to supply a drug after 9 grams of H were recovered from his address in Westminster. The drugs were thrown into a neighbouring balcony with messages concerning drug dealing also recovered from his phone. Judge Marcus Trelelagas Davy said the HRB gang was involved in a long-running and deadly rivalry with CGM, including a long series of shootings and violent reprisals. Yet the rivalry was further fueled by tensions between prominent members of HRB CGM gangs Fredo and Digga D. One of the guns used by HRB gang had been discharged and the firearm was recovered by police on a beach 3 days later. So the gang have been sentenced. And they're as follows. You got Tyson, Mustafa Abdullah, Briggs Leon, Yassin Abdullah, Yekalo and Granum. They were sentenced to 14 years behind bars. Crump was jailed for 14 years for the same crime, while Safo Frimpong received a 2-year custodial sentence. One of the gang members shouted, "Light one, we will be back soon," as he was led from the dock. In mitigator for Tyson, his solicitor said the 24-year-old suffered from PTSD and had been impacted by the deaths of family members, including his older brother and only remaining sibling who was shot dead on the street. They asked the court to be merciful due to his sad background. The defence for Abdullah said he was a hard-working man who was married with 2 children, and he told the court Abdullah had a unique and special bond with his son and he was his primary care. He added Abdullah was the one who was able to calm him down, which was sometimes difficult due to the child's learning difficulties. In mitigation for Leon Briggs, his solicitor said he was the father of a 2-year-old girl and also been a primary carer for his mother who's going treatment. You got Yassin Abdullah. He argued that the defendant was remarkably quiet in regards to correspondence when events of significance such as tracking Digga D took place. He added that Abdullah had to fend for himself when his parents separated from a young age. A solicitor in mitigation for Yekalo said the 31-year-old didn't fit the profile of a career criminal, adding he had been a good son and supported his mentally unwell brother as well as his sister and parents. In mitigation for Granum, his solicitor said the eldest of 5, life was extremely tough for him and his mother, and he argued how he had previously been vulnerable to gangs at the age of 14 and there wasn't a guarantee supper that they'd be on the table every day of the week. And the representative for Crump argued the 24-year-old was significantly younger than his co-conspirators. The mitigation for Safo Frimpong said he'd been impacted by a psychological condition and ill health of his mother, and she added the defendant has been sectioned. He then sought closeness to those who he grew up with, and after his loss, according to the doctors, he was also diagnosed with anxiety. Detective Sergeant Cassie Hazel led the investigation, said this trial has brought to light the true nature of criminal gangs, intent on bringing violence, intimidation and lawlessness to the city streets. The gang thought they were acting above the law and obtained lethal weapons they planned to use in attacks on rival factions. Said officers were able to pick their plan apart through months of tireless investigation, including the identification of high-ranking gang members, the analysis of more than 100 phones, and tackling the suspects of crime head-on. Said we're treating organised crime gangs and we're employing similar tactics to disrupt their activity, and they said that these men have now been taken off the streets, and it's a testament how the officers are taking the fight to organised crime networks.